Hello, welcome to The Wandering Drew. I am Drew. On this video, this long-awaited video for me, I am going to recap my TSX Challenge, the Trans-Sierra Extreme Challenge. If you've been watching my videos over the last several weeks, you've seen my journey traveling to California and then my hike across the Sierras and up Mount Whitney. And I am recording this video after I've been back for about a month and a half. And for me, this trip was so different than ones I've taken in the past. First of all, this was a guided trip, something I have never done before. Additionally, it was out west in the western United States, an area that I've been wanting to go to for a long time, but I've never hiked in of any real note. I've done a day hike, but I've never done any serious hiking or backpacking out in the western United States. And not entirely new for me, but pretty much an unusual occurrence for me was this was with a group. I have gone on a hike with a couple of people before, as you saw in some of my videos when I did the Ocean to Lake Trail, or Swamp to Shore, as I call it. But I've never really gone on a long hike and this type of backpacking with people. And prior to this trip, I didn't know any of the people that I would be traveling with. I had spoken to Chris, the owner of TSX, and I have actually interacted with one of the other participants in a very limited basis. But other than that, I was not friendly, or I've never hiked with any of these people that I went with. So for all those reasons, it was a very unique trip for me. And I feel that this trip has been a very important part of my journey as a hiker and my growth as a hiker. It was very unusual for me to take this type of trip. I heard about the trip in November of 2021 when I was actually hiking on the Pinhoti Trail, listening to a podcast. And I don't know why, but it immediately resonated with me. And when I came back, I spoke to one of the guides on the trip that worked for TSX, and it just sounded like, I don't know what, but it just sounded like it was a good fit for me. So I immediately signed up and committed to it. And I want to make sure that I make it clear that I have no relationship with TSX other than I'm a customer. And I don't know any of the other people, any of the guides, any of the owners or anything like that. And I also paid for the trip with my own money. So I basically signed up for this trip just like anyone else that's watching this or any kind of customer or consumer would do. And to some people, these trips are not exactly cheap. They can be, or feel when you hear the number, quite expensive. You're talking $2,000 for this trip. You know, it's 8 days, plus you have to get yourself there. There's airfare involved. There's hotel, or if you're close enough to be fortunate enough to drive there, there's still gas and tolls and things like that. But if you put it in the context of what you're getting, it's really not that expensive. And depending on how you make use of the services, it may be more useful to you than others. For instance, if you are traveling from out of town like I was and you didn't want to bring some of your equipment, they will provide you with that equipment. I find just if you've ever done any arranging or trying to get a shuttle to and from a trailhead, you realize sometimes how difficult that could be. In places where it's very, very common and there are a lot of hikers, there are more shuttlers. But in this area, and in fact that we drove 4 to 5 hours to get back from the trail. And obviously there are people in the area that probably do shuttles, but maybe not to where we were. And I probably would have flown into a closer airport or a different airport or arranged for a rent-a-car or something, but that would cost me several $100s. So just the transportation factor alone is worth, to me, a couple of $100s, because I understand the value that means, not just the gas, the wear and tear on a vehicle, but the time involved and the cost for a driver. Those factors alone, I think, would bump the price up a couple of $100. But the fact that all your food is provided for you, including snacks, Now, you can still bring some of your own personal stuff, like I did for all my drinks, electrolytes, because they don't provide that. But I felt that all the food for the trip as well being provided, including the bear canister, all increase the value of this and make the cost seem like a very good value for what you're getting. If you needed to borrow equipment, like a sleeping bag, a tent, a backpack even, all that the company will provide for you if you need it. So if you want to and make use of all the available resources to you, you can show up there with really just your personal equipment. And it's actually quite reasonable when you factor all those in. I didn't have to provide a stove, gas, anything to cook with, just eating utensils and a personal cup and spoon, and everything else was provided for. So I think that if you add all those things in, it's a very good value. And I still feel that way returning from the trip. And I'm not sure that I fully got a chance to process this trip, and I think I still am. And of course, in some ways, I'm not dealing with it at all because I moved on. Because after finishing this hike, in less than 24 hours of leaving the trail, I was already on an aircraft flying back home. And the next day, I was back at work. So I don't think there was a lot of time to reflect on this. But watching the videos, editing the videos, and posting them, and occasionally going back to make sure that they were working and that there weren't any errors or mistakes in them, has brought some of this trip back to me. And I think as time goes on, I also revisit it and get to process it so that I can truly understand what a big trip this was for me and how much I enjoyed it. Like I said, this trip to me was out of character. It was impulsive for me maybe to sign up and go, but I wanted to go out west. I was concerned about going out west because I have never really hiked out west, especially in the Sierras, where I was worried about altitude. I was worried about having the skills to navigate, how much of that I would need. I was worried about water, dehydration. So all these factors combined led me to decide that a guided trip, or this trip in particular, would be a good fit for me and would allow me to dip my toe in the water, so to say, of hiking or backpacking out west in a controlled or safe environment with a couple of backups in terms of safety. And now that I have done this, I think that just like every hike that anyone can do, with a lot of planning, or a little bit of planning, and a little bit of research, that I would easily go back out and hike in that area. Obviously, doing your research on the trails, the maps, learning to use a map and compass, I think is a very good skill to have always. I don't think it's necessary for a lot of trails, but it would definitely be a good thing to have. And I think in this case, it might be a good thing to have as well. Obviously, a GPS would, I think, be very good to have with you, with maybe a GPS track or at least current maps on it. You don't need to have navigational skills in order to hike, but they do come in handy. And there are times that things fail. I like simplicity of things that don't need electricity because they can't go bad if you run out of power. If you rely on your phone or your GPS and something happens and they stop working, you need to have a plan B. And that's where maps and a compass come in. Like I said, I like the idea of going with a guide who knew the area. And uncharacteristic for me, I did very little research. I did not watch a lot of videos about the Sierras or even Mount Whitney. As a matter of fact, when I signed up for the trip, I didn't really know a lot about Mount Whitney, and I really didn't care about it. Mount Whitney wasn't important to me. As I signed up for the trip and then I researched it a little better, it became a goal to be able to do. But it also caused some concern because it is the highest mountain in the continental United States at over 14,500 feet. So that became another actually thing I worried about and became concerned about me being able to do that. And I think going on this guided trip worked out well. It's very well thought out. The stops where the camps are all planned and thought out. Your water stops, they know where the water is available, and there's sufficient breaks. Sometimes a little bit too much for me. I usually tend to hike more, but it became enjoyable and it wasn't as challenging in terms of I wasn't pushing myself each day. I knew there was a set mileage and that we would generally do that mileage. And I was traveling with a group, which made it more enjoyable. And finishing this trip now makes me feel that I would go out there and with some research, I would feel comfortable enough and confident enough to go do a hike in that area on my own or with another group. I know that you, my viewer, doesn't really know me very well. We share our videos and you get some insights into me, but we really don't know each other, but we build a connection and a bond through these videos. Many of you may not realize that I am actually, and I don't know if it comes across in the videos, but I'm actually quite introverted. I keep to myself. The videos and the hiking have brought me out of that for a little bit just because of the activity, and I'm interacting with other people, and especially on this trip because I interacted with my fellow hikers. But I generally like to be a private person. Prior to this trip, and even now, I still sometimes question my abilities, my confidence in being able to do like Colby Pass or Mount Whitney. So the confidence that you need to do these things, sometimes it wavers, and the confidence in yourself and your abilities to hike to the altitude or the long distance in the miles, I questioned myself on whether I would be able to complete this journey. So like I said, I did very little research on that, and that was both good and bad. Good, that I didn't have any preconceived notions of what to expect, and bad because I had no preconceived notions what to expect, and I made the mountain bigger and taller than it was, and the pass bigger and taller and harder than it needed to be. And after it's over, like most things in life, after we do them, we realize they really weren't as hard as we made them in our own mind. And knowing that, I would easily probably consider going back to Mount Whitney or even doing this trip again. Now that I know that altitude sickness is not a big boogeyman that I have to worry about, it didn't affect me. I had a headache for like a day or two. Sometimes I felt a little tired and fatigued, but I never had any adverse reaction. I didn't get nauseous. I didn't get sick. I would have no problem going to altitude again. And on this trip, forced me to face my fears, forced me to face the fear of going up Colby Pass into the altitude. It forced me to face Mount Whitney. And also, after coming through these things, you have a newfound confidence in your skills and ability because you've been there and done that. I would like to say that I think that if you're going to undertake one of these trips, there is training that you should do. The better prepared you are in terms of physicality and your shape, the better you will do. So I'd just like to make it clear. I think that if you're going to undertake any hike of any sort, especially something as physical as the TSX Challenge, that you should train and try and get in the best shape possible to make it an easier crossing. It wasn't impossible. It was hard. It was challenging, but it is doable. And I think anyone with normal or just, cursory fitness levels can still do this, but they're definitely going to be slower and harder for them to do it. One of the guys put it well, and I think I did the same thing. We thought Extreme Challenge was almost like advertising. It wasn't. We didn't take it to heart, but it was hard. It was challenging, but it's doable. And I think most people of average abilities can do this, but it will take them some time, and they're going to feel it. There's no doubt about that. The other reason why I did this trip is I wanted to get outside my comfort zone. I wanted to do something different than what I've been doing. And I go to the AT or Georgia a lot to hike. I've hiked there, some in North Carolina, South Carolina. I'm used to the eastern, areas where there's trees and forests that I'm kind of used to. And I feel a little level of comfort in going there. Obviously, it's different. The mountains are different. Each trail is a little different, but it's in the same general area and vicinity, like terrain. And this was totally different. I wanted to see the wide open spaces that people talk about and experience the West for myself. And some of the other things I did, like I cowboy camped, which I've never done before. It's not a big thing really when you think about it, but it's something I've done that I've thought about doing, and I've just never been able or in the right place and willing to take the chance and do it. So I knew that there was going to be no rain on this trip, at least the first night when I cowboy camped, which is really the second night on the trail, but the first day of hiking, day one. And I knew there would be no rain, so I'm like, well, why not do it now? There were so many things about this trip that were special. Some of them you saw, but a lot of them were private and will remain that way. But something that occurred, and it's so simple and obvious, I know it, but sometimes you need to hear things. On day 3 in the video you saw, we arrived at a place called the Slide, which is basically a large rock face that's kind of smooth with water running over it as the water makes its way down the mountain in the valley. And everybody was talking about how when you get there, you go in the water and the force of the water helps you slide down this rock face. And that is outside my comfort zone. I felt ill at ease in doing that for many reasons. When we were discussing, are we going to do it? Are you going to do it? Are you not going to do it? Things like that. I was unsure. I felt very uncomfortable and ill at ease. I was nervous about doing it. And I do know why and I don't know why. Some of it I can put to words. Some of it was the unknown. Some of it is the known. I was afraid of looking foolish or silly. And you can see, I'm going to hopefully put the video in here. My technique leaves a lot to be desired. But I realized everybody was doing it. So that gives you a little bit of comfort that I'm one of the group. We're all doing this together. And that's part of the stuff that made us bond and mesh. I was worried about being injured, partly. You know, it seems like a silly thing to do, to be sliding down this rock and hurt yourself or cut yourself. And sometimes, as I said, you need to hear things. So, Dara, thank you for what you said. It was so simplistic, but it's what I needed. It was like a slap in the face where you said to me, well, when are you going to do it then? The next time you're here? So simple and so obvious, but it was the thing that made me realize she's right. When am I going to do this again? I'm, in all likelihood, never coming by this rock face again. And I will never have a chance to do this again. Maybe somewhere else, but not here, not with this group. So take hold of it, embrace it, and enjoy it, and go do it. And that's exactly what I did. And like I said, need to work on my technique. And I used that a little bit later in the hike. And I'd always believed on some level that I could do the hike. I could climb Mount Whitney, I can get over the pass. And I rationalized to myself that hundreds of other people do this. So why wouldn't I? And that's a lot of the things I think about when I'm doing something and something seems hard. I'm like, other people do it. They're able to do it. You should be able to do it too. There's no reason why you can't. So when it came to climbing Colby Pass, I was definitely nervous and stressed. But Mount Whitney was even higher and a longer hike. And I was definitely nervous about that. And one of the key moments, and using this thing where I say, yeah, everybody does it. You'll be, I could do it too, came on that night, the day before we went up. At the end of the night, Chris, one of the guides, took us over while we were in camp to show us Mount Whitney. And we could just see it in the fading light. The actual top of the mountain was lit up by the setting sun. And he pointed it out to us, all of us. And I was so nervous but amped up. It was like an adrenaline dump. I was physically affected by that, almost like a hypersensitivity. I was feeling the nervousness, but I was ready to go. I wanted to do it at the same time as there was that fear or nervousness about doing it. And I could tell I was not the only one. As a matter of fact, one of the other participants actually said, I don't know if I can do this. And I turned to her and I remember saying this, but I also felt it and I needed to hear it, as I said myself. Of course you can do this. Look at all the other people that do it. You're going to do it. We're all going to do it. And when I said that, I needed it for myself, but that person obviously needed it. But I believed it. It was true. We were going to do it. We were all going to do it. And we did. And the next night in camp, 24 hours later, when everyone was in camp having successfully climbed Mount Whitney, there were some very happy people there. And we had all done it. So I think the next day, there was a different atmosphere. There was a more jubilant one. There was more, people were more confident. And we had also known that that was supposedly the high point of the trip in terms of physicality. I think we weren't done yet, but at least in our minds, the hard part was done. The worst was over and we had come through it and we had been successful. And I think everybody was closer and more bonded. We had stripped away some of the outside world and we were closer because we had seen all of us sometimes struggle with things, but come together and work as a group. So it's an individual battle, but it was also a group. We were a team. We weren't just individuals climbing, we were a group climbing. So we all felt accomplished. And then we hiked up to that dry camp. Some of us carrying a lot of water. Thank you, Camelback, and our guides, and some of the other people that all carried extra water so we would have it as a group. And That night we had an emotional campfire without a campfire because there was no fires allowed there. But we had a very emotional dinner with a round table, kind of discussing the trip, our thoughts. The guides gave each of us trail names. And I had decided prior to this trip to not go with the trail name of Wandering Drew. That was twofold. I am quite attached to that name now. It's kind of grown on me over the last 3-4 years. But I also wanted to see and get that feedback of what do other people see? What did the group think about me? And it was very interesting because I don't think we see ourselves in the same light. So I was very surprised. And I remember even asking one of the other person, is that how people see me and viewed when they gave me the trail name, which if you watch the video, which is an excellent video, where they gave me the trail name Link. So I haven't really used it yet. I'm on the fence about it. It's special to me. It means something because it was given to me by the group, but I don't know if I'm ready to quite take that as a trail name. Then after dinner, Chris led us once again to another overlook, which of course was uphill and a little bit away from the camp. And we were able to see the mountains and look back and to see where we had come from and how far we had come. In the distance, you could see Colby Pass and some of the mountains. It was just incredible. And the sun was going down and some of the mountains were lit and the sky was red and, beautiful colors. And it was just a very special moment and one which I still feel the emotion from. And it was good. It was a private moment, but it was also shared with these people who had shared this hike with me. And that made it special. It was also partly sad because we knew that this trip was ending. Our trip in general and our time with each other was ending. And tomorrow, as I say, we'd be back in the land of hot showers, cold drinks, hot food, and electricity on demand, running water. All these things were playing. So we were looking forward to that. I was looking forward to getting back, getting a shower, getting clean, getting to see my family again. All these things go through your mind. But I was also knew that I would miss the I also knew that I would miss the trail and that I would miss this hiking and this group because we had bonded. I had never grown. I've been to several team building exercises through corporate things and with involving in scouts and all different activities, but never has a group to me melded so fast and so well. Nobody, not one time. And some people were not having good days. They were tired. Some of them were hurt, not feeling good, exhausted. And yet I never heard anybody say anything toward each other or, maybe in general, just like I'm tired or whatever, but never any disagreement or even arguments with anybody. I've never had that happen because usually you get a group together, there's going to be some tension. And I felt there was really none here. So that was a testament to maybe the people, the experience, a combination of many things. But I think with a different group of people, you would have a different outcome. It's all variables. So here you have a group of people thrown together by chance and circumstances, and yet they excel. And because of that, I felt that we bonded and became friends very rapidly. And I know that there's a chance that I may not see some of them or many of them I may not see ever again. But I hope we'll always have that connection. And I hope that if the opportunity existed for us to get together or we're in the same area and we could see each other, it would be great to get together to reacquaint ourselves and to relive our trip. So this trip, along with the experiences and everything, is causing me to examine myself and also want to stretch my legs a little bit on the hiking ladder, the growth of myself as a hiker, wanting to do more and do different things. I also need to go out there and get out of my comfort zone. Do what I say and by practice, not just by words, but do them safely with research and planning to gain these experiences. So you're taking a chance, but it's a calculated chance, a risk, I should say. And if I don't do that, then I'm just another talking head telling you should be doing something, but not willing to put myself out there. And that's not who I hope I am or want to be. So I'm going to hopefully continue to learn and grow. During the hike, two of the participants, Karen and Beth, especially, hence her trail name of Cheer, would constantly motivate us or cheer us on. And we're always constantly saying things like one would say, how lucky are we? We get to do this. And it sounds cheesy, but I get it. I welcomed it at the time. I've said these things myself. How fortunate and blessed are we to live in a country where these trails exist? There are people that maintain them for us. There are volunteers that are willing to go out there and give of their time and of their self, their money, and their effort to make these trails available to us. So we are truly lucky. I've said those things myself. Some of my videos, you've heard me say those things because it's true. Not everybody is in a place where they have these trails, but more importantly, how blessed and lucky am I that I can choose to do these activities, that I have the resources, the time, and I'm able to go do them. That is sometimes even harder than a trail being there because the trail is always there. That doesn't mean we go out there and use them. We have to make the effort to go to them, not just maintain them and volunteer and do all those things, but we have to physically make a choice to go do these activities. And these activities aren't always easy. Sometimes they're hard. Hiking isn't always easy. It's hard. Not everybody wants to do it. Not everybody likes to go out and climb up a mountain or a hillside and sweat and do without air conditioning or freeze in cold weather or to eat a rehydrated meal. And that's okay. They don't have to. But if you want to and you choose to, you can. And that is a great blessing. Like many of you, I get to play hiker every once in a while. I don't want to live this lifestyle all the time. I like creature comforts. I like hot water. I like hot food. I like cold drinks. So I go out there temporarily and I come back to the rest of the world, the real world, as a lot of hikers say, and enjoy the modern conveniences. I can't hike every trail. It's not physically or with the time available to me something I could do. But I can pick and choose certain trails that have special meaning or that I want to do. And you can do the same. With planning and forethought, we can accomplish anything. So I hope that I will continue hiking, making new memories, exploring new trails, pushing myself a little bit, and I hope that you'll get out there and do a little bit of that as well. This trip was a great one, and I recommend it to anyone. The TSX Challenge, to me, lived up to its motto, inspiration for a lifetime. I will remember this hike, look back on it with good memories, and realize that it was a stepping stone for bigger and better things. It was life-changing. I think for several of the participants, it was life-changing, as it was for me. I cannot endorse or speak well of this trip any more than I'm doing. The guides were great. I think the trip was laid out perfectly between the food, the stops and the rest when needed, the support when needed. I felt we were in a safe environment. We were, I think one of the other participants, we were like little ducklings, with them watching over us. We were able to freely walk at our own pace and go along, but we were guided, but not smothered. I'm sure with other groups, maybe more direct interaction is available, but with our group, I don't think that was needed. A lot of the people were very motivated, very self-motivated and disciplined. And we all got along and went along and did what was asked of us and hiked where we needed to go. Except for that one day when we fell a little bit short of our distance, and it wasn't by much, we pretty much performed, I think, as the average or would be expected. But I think we had people of all different abilities. But the guides were there if we had questions or we had problems. Some people got injuries. Some people had questions about equipment or needed a little bit of tweaking with their equipment. And the guides were there to help us. Hey, adjust your backpack here, try this. In some cases, even taking stuff out of their backpack, maybe giving them a little less load because they were already burdened with a large enough pack, either through the gear they were carrying or they had selected to bring, or just they were having a hard time that day because it was a rougher day. So, and we all worked together. As I said, we were a team. This hike, in my mind, I keep coming back to with the saying that reverberates in my head that the whole hike was greater than the sum of the parts. And in that I mean, each one of us brought something to the table and we interacted with each other, but together we made it bigger and better and larger and more enjoyable. And I think that really, to me, was what I took away from this trip. I believe that I got more out of this hike than I expected and anticipated to get. And it was so worth it to me. I'm proud of what I did. what my fellow hikers did, and I'm proud of this t-shirt that I earned. And thank you, Chris, for sending this to me, because the t-shirt at the end of the trail was not the right size. So I waited to get this t-shirt so I could do this video. So hence the time. And I am proud of this shirt, and it has the map on the back of where we went and all the camps. But thank you, Chris, for sending it to me. It's a definitely better fit, and I enjoy it, and I'm proud to wear it. I am honored to have been in the company of my fellow hikers. There were some very strong hikers. How do you look at a guy that's hiking at 70 years old, 69? He's 70 now, but 69 years old doing the same hike. There was another guy that was 65. Ansel was clearly a beast in terms of hiking. He was, in my mind, the fastest hiker that we had. But yet he sets a bar that I hope to be able to still do what he's doing when I reach his age. We did a great job, and we had fun doing it. I thanked all the hikers and the guides during the last night, and I want to thank them again now. Thank you for your friendship and your camaraderie and letting me be part of the team. The fact that I am considering doing another hike with TSX in the future, I think speaks volume of the company. You're literally placing yourself, your safety, and your life in their hands. And I had a great time, and I would love and enjoy doing it again. I'll probably go to a different place because I want to experience new things. But the fact that I'm willing to go again with this company, I think speaks volumes, and I would wholeheartedly endorse someone going on this trip. I don't think you would regret it. I think you will come back also enjoying the trip and have inspiration for a lifetime. So to Chris and the entire TSX family, my fellow hikers and participants, thank you so much for a great trip. So that's all I have. Enough of TSX, and I'm moving on. Next week, I'm going to have a video of once I returned. I cleaned all my gear, and I think I go through my equipment. It's been a while. I shot it as soon as I came back, so it was actually recorded way before this video. But I go through some of my equipment. I discuss some of the decisions of the equipment I took and whether it worked for me or didn't. And that's the only equipment video I'll be doing for this. I do have some plans in the works, but I'm waiting to hear back on them before I announce them for next year. I have probably 2 hikes already planned in the first part of the year. I was discussing going back to the Pinhoti to finish it up in February or March, but something happened in the last couple of days that may be changing that. But I'll tell you more about that in the future. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like what I'm doing, please give me a like or thumbs up, a comment. I try to respond to all of them, but I appreciate all the support I've been given, all the comments I've been reading on the first couple of videos that have come out. Thank you so much. Till we meet again.